On this episode of Game Shack, Arcade1up is betting the farm on Pac-Man XL. I'm going to tell you why I think that's true coming up next. Hey everybody, welcome on into the Game Shack. I'm your host JDV for Evil Genius Entertainment. Thanks for stopping by. Really does mean a lot to us. Seriously, thanks for stopping by. We're going to have a new horror short come out for Halloween sometimes next week. So if you're interested in scary movies or Halloween type stuff, keep your eyes open for that. Please give me a thumbs up on the way out the door. It really does help the channel, as does subscribing. Please subscribe if you haven't already. It really does mean a lot to us. Okay, so we know that Pac-Man XL has been out for a couple of weeks now and probably is going to be a fairly big, good seller for Arcade1up. At least it better be, or they're in big trouble. And this is why. Now that Arcade1up has kind of shown their hand and shown the XL form factor, many of the hardcore hobbyists that you and I essentially are going to be sitting on the fence waiting for the titles that we want to see in that form factor. I'm talking about everything from Tron and Star Wars, maybe to Burger Time, ROBOTRON, Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, games like that. If you were kind of sitting on the fence for the new Legacy Deluxe titles that came out this year, well, you're probably going to stay on the fence until you see whether or not there's going to be an XL variant coming in 2024, right? And yet, I don't think any of those titles are going to come out unless this Pac-Man XL cab sells very, very well. And why do I think that? Well, a couple reasons, but the primary reason is that Pac-Man was, is, and always will be the backbone to Arcade1up's financial success. They have put out over 36 variants of Pac-Man, Namco/Galaga cabs since Arcade1up hit the scene a little over 5 years ago. But it is amazing to think just how many different varieties of Pac-Man have come out. And I'm not even talking about the little countercades, the joystick, the couchcade, all that other kind of stuff that we've seen. I'm talking just about the 17-inch screens that they've put out. It's a huge number of them. Represents really probably the millions of cabs they've sold. I'm going to guess that maybe 70–80% of them are some kind of Pac-Man variant. And so what does that mean? Well, that means that if this Pac-Man XL cab does not sell out, if it doesn't sell out whatever run that they've made of these cabs, then I think that Arcade1up is in big trouble because they have nothing left to give us. We're pretty sure now that we're not going to see any higher end CPUs from the company. Fast and the Furious and Area 51 kind of prove that, right? I mean, yes, you can get some fairly decent graphics out of that chipset, but we're not going to probably see Virtua Fighter. We're not going to be able to see like multiple different racetracks at high level of graphics. I mean, we're kind of at the max of what we're ever going to see from this company. If you think about the number of hardcore watchers of videos like this, fans of 3/4 scale gaming, really you're talking about maybe 100,000 people or less. And I'm getting that number a little bit based on @Games telling us that they're going to give us 15 different tables of 5,000 each. Well, that's 75,000. Let's put that up another 25,000 for, arcade games, which are probably a little bit more popular than pinball. And that's about what the maximum, I think, the number of people that are in this. And you can also kind of judge that by the people who watch all the various people that are in this community. Well, if you contrast that with the millions of cabinets that they've already sold for Pac-Man, and you get to see where Arcade1up can kind of turn their nose up at us. And yet, we won't buy either until we know that there are those different variants in the XL form factor. At least that's the feedback that I'm getting from most of you guys, which means that if that Pac-Man XL falls flat on its face, that we probably won't see any other XL form factor, or we'll see it in MK and Street Fighter and probably nothing else. But if it's a big success, if they fly off the shelves in November and December for Christmas, and that's a good sign. It means the economy is healthy enough that general public will buy those cabs, and some of us as well. If they do sell out, then yes, I think we could expect to see those other titles in that XL form factor. But if it doesn't, then I don't think we will. And I also think that Arcade1up will be in a lot of trouble because, again, we're not going to see any higher end chipsets. We're probably not going to see a whole lot of new titles, maybe ROBOTRON, maybe a couple other things like that, maybe House of the Dead. But there's not a whole lot of tricks up Arcade1up sleeves if this XL design does not sell well. So hey, fingers crossed for them because I think that is a good design. I do like Arcade1up as a company, and I do hope that we get to see those XL variants in other titles besides just Pac-Man. So I think that Arcade1up is kind of between a rock and a hard place. I think most people who have a general interest in this, just kind of walking through a Walmart or a Target or a Costco, aren't going to spend any more than $300 or $400, particularly on a non-Pac-Man game. On the other hand, I think most of us already have this title in some form or another, like I have Pac-Mania, so I don't really need the XL, right? And I guess a lot of you are probably going to feel the same way. On the other hand, I would very much like to buy a Star Wars XL variant, or any one of those other higher end games in that larger form factor, because then you are really getting very close to arcade real. But again, the general public probably doesn't have that much interest in it. And if they don't show a lot of interest in this Pac-Man XL cab, then I think that we know for a fact that they're not going to be buying Burger Time or Robotron or some of these other niche titles that we might see from Arcade1up. So fingers crossed, they sell a lot of these things, and hopefully we get to see the titles that we want to see beyond Pac-Man in the year 2024. But that's only going to happen if Pac-Man sells very well. So what do you guys think? Do you think that this Pac-Man XL game has to be a big hit for Arcade1up? Or is it really only going to sell when we see it on sale? Is $600 just too much for any kind of cab for the general public? And if it is, that means our Arcade1up has to radically change their thinking in terms of the XL series. All right, let me know what you guys think down below. It really does matter to me. All right, as always, love each other, and I'll see you guys again in the Game Shack.
Be sure to visit EvilGeniusEntertainment.com for exclusive content, swag, casting call news, and much, much more.